and I am the owner and principal of Fusion Success Group. I am also a board member of the Health Cell, a local networking and professional development organization serving the San Antonio life science and healthcare community. San Antonio's bioscience ecosystem has evolved and expanded over the last decade, with an economic impact of more than $40.2 billion in 2018, and with more than 1 in 6 working adults in Greater San Antonio being employed in the healthcare and bioscience industry. Our city is very fortunate to be the home to world-renowned research centers and universities, committed public sector entities, medical and pharmaceutical companies, and one of the U.S. military's largest medical commands and life science initiatives. These deep assets, in addition to the collaborative and welcoming spirit that we're all familiar with in the Alamo City, have attracted many corporations and entrepreneurs to want to do business here. But with the challenges presented to us this year with the pandemic, protecting and even advancing human health is something that we're all thinking about right now. Entrepreneurs who are committed to improving patients' lives through innovative therapies and medical technologies face a very difficult challenge, as the often 10+ year pathway from idea to successful commercialization is paved with many technical, regulatory, and financial hurdles. So today, in our short time together, we will learn about some of the key local entrepreneurial support organizations and the resources they provide to help overcome the pain points of launching a bioscience startup. Our objective with our time today is to meet the leaders of some of these organizations, learn about the resources they have to offer, and discover the impact they are making in the local ecosystem. So I am joined today by the leaders of these 4 very different organizations: Ramon Coronado, Executive Director of Crown Scientific and CEO of Peridor Therapeutics; Brian Kieser, Managing Partner at Fountainhead Investment Partners and founder of Watershed Idea Foundry; John Fritz, Co-Director at TechNovum of UT Health San Antonio; and David Fonseca, VP of Global Business Development for VelocityTX and Chairman of the Board for Alamo Angels. So here's the format of today's session to give you an idea of what to expect. We'll take a few moments for each speaker to briefly introduce themselves and tell us a little bit about what's been going on at their organizations. I'll kick off the conversation, asking questions to draw out some of the high-level themes. And then we'll open up the floor to give our audience members a chance to ask questions that you've been thinking about related to this topic. So as you think about questions throughout the call, please enter them in the chat box and state your question first. Give us some sentences around the context, and we'll try to get to as many of them as we have time for. So I hope everyone is ready. And I see we have 6 attendees. So to introduce everyone to our audience, and please let me know if you're a San Antonio native, I'd like to start with Ramon. So I've been following your career, Ramon. I've been hunting you on LinkedIn, noticing your work from your Ph.D. work at UT Health to finding your own biotech startup and everything you did at Leicester Research Institute. And now you run a local incubator here in San Antonio called Crown Scientific that's been in the news. Can you tell us and our audience a little bit about your background and your journey over to Crown Scientific?
Yeah, certainly. Thank you very much for having me here. So to talk a little bit about the journey in a short sentence is I was doing my master's and PhD under UTSA and the UT Health. And there's a lot of technologies that I wanted to see translated into the commercial world. And while I was doing my PhD in conjunction with the US Army, I was working with stem cells, and that's how I started my first company. And then part of the journey has been into understanding the needs for people wanting to translate ideas from the scientific black box into giving access to people to get better. So the end goal is to improve lives and to help people using our technologies and all the discoveries. And then part of my journey has been building a laboratory. So we have now access to what is called a wet laboratory. So things that you require for testing cellular components of proteins and molecular. So essentially, if you're going to put it inside of someone's body or you're going to inject it, then that becomes a therapeutic of sorts. So what we have developed is we have now access to the hardware, to the tools that are usually very expensive. And while we have that, we decided to just open it a little bit to other companies or in the beginning phases. So there's a niche in between a discovery and you have a proof of concept, but sometimes you need to generate a little bit more data to get the next grant or to show it to your investors. And we're trying to give opportunities on that niche. Use like a launch pad where people can come over and then hire us either by contract or rent space for a month or just for a project where they can just come and develop their ideas, the scientific ideas, the therapeutics, and then they can just move on to the next stage when they're ready for the bigger grant or the bigger things. So that's what we're doing at Crown Scientific.
Thank you, Ramon, for that background. And I'll be asking you a couple more questions. I'd love to learn more about how Crown Scientific works and some of the neat work that you're doing over there. So I'd like to move to Brian next, Brian Kieser. First of all, are you originally from San Antonio? And can you tell us about how you got involved in the Fountainhead umbrella and explain to us a little bit about how that's organized in the different holdings?
Sure. So Brian Kieser, managing partner of Fountainhead Investment Partners. I am not a native San Antonian. I'm from the East Coast, from New Jersey, but I got to Texas as quick as I could. At least that's what they tell me I'm supposed to say. So moved to Texas in 1986, went to school, finished my education at University of Texas at El Paso, and lived in El Paso for 25 years, moved here to San Antonio. In 2010, started a medical device company shortly after, and from there developed the Fountainhead Investment Partners model. And it was really out of the Fountainhead Investment Partners, the creation of that, which was originally created as a special purpose fund to make very, very specialized, narrow focused investments in technologies and companies that supported our medical device company that we opened up and started looking at other technologies that perhaps were on the fringes or somewhat related, but not significant to our existing operations. But the impetus for Watershed, which is our incubator accelerator, was we found we thought there was a gap in what the entrepreneur's expectation or where he thought he was in his life cycle versus where we thought he was. And so we've tried to figure out a way to develop a bridge to bridge that gap. And so that was Watershed. And so Watershed has kind of grown from this, basically trying to help reconcile where we thought a potential investment or entrepreneur was with his project versus where we thought he was. And Watershed has grown in the last couple of years. Its main headquarters actually is in San Diego, and it's taken on some larger clients now as an incubator and accelerator. But we continue to want to support locally San Antonio and the San Antonio biomedical innovation ecosystem here and the local entrepreneurs here. So Envision Biomedical Technologies, our medical device company, which has been here since 2013, we're taking on more of the local work now for the entrepreneur and the business innovation base here in San Antonio. And really our model is, we've always kind of seen if you think about the traditional ask, it's, $2 million and it'll take, 2 years to get the thing through the FDA. And we start looking at, what their use of funds are going to be. And we found that in many cases, what they're going to spend the money on is things that we already have available in-house. So our infrastructure is built out for both med device and hardware, as well as human tissue. So our quality and regulatory department covers all of that FDA regulatory environment. Plus, we have our own engineers, we have our own in-house patent counsel. So what our model is really is to help support by offering our existing resources. It helps, I think, de-risks the investment for the true just cash in investors. And so that's been our model. It's been successful. We've got some really great projects we're working on with local entrepreneurs and local startups. And so glad to be part of today's discussion.
Thank you, Brian. And next, I'd like to move to John Fritz. Thanks for joining us today, John. So John, you have a very interesting and extensive background in marketing, but also technology commercialization. Can you share with us a little bit about your journey and how you ventured over to UT Health and starting TechNovum? And John, I think you're on mute, so you'll need to unmute yourself.
That would be good. Yes, thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm also not a San Antonio native. I was actually born in Lima, Peru, and my father was part of the U.S. Embassy with the U.S. Navy, so traveled around quite a bit in my early life. In my early career, I spent first 25 years in industry in large companies, mainly working in new product development and commercialization. And I spent some time with a spinoff of NASA called NERAC, primarily focused on commercialization, consulting with companies that were dealing with med devices. When I arrived in Texas, which is as fast as I could, it was actually in 1999. That was with Kinetic Concepts, the large med device company here in San Antonio that was later bought out by Facility, which is now part of 3M. So I spent some years there, and then one of my colleagues had moved to UT Health and had told me, hey, if you're ever interested, let me know. And an opportunity came up, and I started at UT Health more than a dozen years ago. So at UT Health, our main focus in our office, which is the Office of Tech Commercialization, is simply to get the inventions that are developed at the university, which are primarily therapeutics, diagnostics, devices, and digital health related to patients, right? And so the way we do that is either we commercialize by licensing directly to, say, a large company that already exists, or spin out companies that then take the technology and they later usually get bought out by large entities. So those are the two main models. And I know we're going to focus on the entrepreneurial startup model today.
Thank you, John. All right, so lastly, I'd like to move to David Fonseca. If you'd like to unmute yourself, David. Go. All right, sorry about that. I think that's happened to everyone at least once or twice on Zoom. So speaking with David from Velocity, Texas, David, can you tell us a little bit about your journey? I know you've been all over the world and you have a strong passion for entrepreneurship and specifically support organizations, which I understand has led you to Velocity. So can you share a little bit about where you've been and how you got to be here at the Velocity Innovation Center?
Thank you, Monica. First of all, thank you guys. I'm honored to share the virtual stage with you guys, with Brian, Ramon, and John. Thank you, Monica, for the invitation. And I see that, the attendees, there are many good friends of Velocity and myself. So thanks so much for being here, guys. I got exposed to entrepreneurial journey at a very young age. I was probably 13 years old, and my dad came home and he said, I'm selling the house, I'm selling the cars, I'm going to venture on my own. And I kind of freaked out and said, what does that mean? What about ice cream? And he said, don't worry about ice cream. It's all about quality of life. And he actually brought Swatch, the Swiss brand, to Colombia, and he distributes all in St. Cities in Washington Hill here. So with that, I saw an opportunity to actually start selling watches at a very young age and develop a business around it. And then moved to buying cattle because a friend had a farm, and the rest is history. But if I had to define my journey in the United States, will be in three phases. The first phase was, I came when I was 18 years old to study at Texas A&M University, Corpus Christi, with an academic scholarship to study finance. And at a very young age, I got exposed to an incubator that the Chamber of Commerce was putting together in a couple of offices in downtown. If you guys been in Corpus Christi, you know how small it is. Just imagine that 12 years ago. And I got involved. I was fascinated with the model, and they offered me to stay after my B.A. in finance and pay for my M.B.A. So within 4 years, fast forward, we grew that location to 35,000 square footage, 3 floors, 3D printers. We serve over 135 companies working in different industries, and we were very disciplined around a model with proven methodologies to serve companies at different stages of development, and that got picked up by an association called International Business Innovation Association, and I was blessed that they asked me to train people on this model in around 32 countries. So I spent quite a bit of time in an airplane, having fun with many organizations in the entrepreneurial ecosystem, from co-working space, accelerators, incubators, Angel networks, and so on. And life took me to serving the board of this organization, where we actually hired a new CEO, and that CEO asked me to lead the international programs. I moved to Florida. That's where my second phase started. And we had, 2,200 members across 62 countries, so it was quite exciting. We worked with the State Department on funding organizations in the Western Hemisphere, from Argentina to all the way up to Canada. And the European Commission actually came along to commercialize things in Silicon Valley and Boston. I was having way too much fun in Orlando, close to the happiest place on earth. And Randy Herrick, our CEO, called me to find out if I had an interest to join Velocity. And that takes me to the third phase of my life, which is right now, right here. As you guys may know, I see some people in the attendees that have been, following us. I was the mind behind, building the Global Accelerator, which was sourcing companies from 4 different countries and bringing them into town. Within 2 years, we have 700 applicants. We got 12. I was very proud of Delta and Mexico supporting us. 2 of the companies decided to stay, but in my humble opinion, and this is David speaking, the best thing that could happen to us was the pandemic, because it put us in a place where we really needed to reflect on what we wanted to do as an organization, on where we were going. Rene Dominguez had just joined the team, and we decided to move that infrastructure internationally and really engage the community to start a new bioaccelerator program. That is open now. We will be writing $12,000 for the selected companies and $25,000 for the winner of the cohort. I'm blown away with the support of the community. We have over 23 sessions, 42 facilitators, 4 entrepreneur residents, 10 mentors, with a lot of networking opportunities. For the ones that haven't heard about, Velocity, we have an innovation district that we're working really hard to get it off the ground here in the east side. We have 5 buildings, 2 of them already up and running with full $20 million of our own endowment. The city has given us support of $5 million, and we recently have received some support from the federal government. So very happy to be here, and I hope that we can get a chance to connect at a much more deeper level to see how can we add more value for entrepreneurs.
Thank you, David, for that very nice background and giving us a little bit of an inside peek to what goes on at Velocity. So with that, I'd like to revisit Brian Kieser and Ramon Coronado. So starting with Brian, and then Ramon, you can go next. Can you share with our audience about how your incubator model works, and take us kind of behind the scenes in the way that your facilities are run, some of the capabilities, equipment, lab space, manufacturing space that you offer to your clients for our audience.
Sure. So we, in December, this past year, we moved into just over 20,000 square feet at Lock Hill, Selma in 1604. And we did that so we could consolidate a couple of our businesses. So we, under our kind of Fountainhead umbrella, we have 3 operating companies that have been stood up at various times over the last 7 years. Envision Biomedical Technologies, which is our medical device manufacturer. Sequence Life Science, which is a tissue bank that we have recently moved from Gainesville, Florida. And Watershed Idea Foundry has a presence here in San Antonio as well. And so, we originally, one of our investments under Fountainhead was a tissue bank called Alaris Biologic Technologies in Gainesville, Florida. And we decided to move that here to San Antonio. And so that's, we did an acquisition in order to kind of bring that into Texas. And so that's, that was the reason for bringing it here. So we needed the space, since we have 20,000 square feet, a little over. Envision, all of Envision's engineers are here. So our entire engineering team is here. Our entire quality regulatory management team is here. We do all of our inventory and logistics out of this building. But we also are constructing a 5 clean room facility that will be finished being built, I guess, right around the end of December, right around the turn of the year. It'll have 4 class 5 clean rooms. It'll have a class 7 clean room. We'll have a SPD, much like a hospital facility would have, a sterile processing room. And then we already have in operation a separate class 7 packaging room and clean room that we're working with now, kind of as a kind of a bridge to the larger clean room facility. We have a 900 square foot cadaver lab, 6-station cadaver lab. We host surgeons and companies from around the country. They come in, they'll test their ideas. They'll want to do some instruction on some of their products. And so we've hosted surgeons from California to New York to Florida and everywhere in between. We also use that lab for our designs and the work that we're doing internally. And so that's something that we're really proud of here. We want to make sure that everybody in San Antonio knows is available to them. We do have a wet lab space, probably just 300 square feet or so. We have some class 5 hoods, incubators, centrifuges, just general lab space. And we also have a separate kind of lecture hall. It's not your traditional, academic theater, stadium type lecture hall, but it's a conference room that's adjacent to the cadaver lab. We have audiovisual capability so that someone could be doing a lab and then you could share that on the screen. We have overhead video and recording capabilities so that if you're doing a cadaver lab, you can record the session, you can speak about it, you can do it in almost like an operating theater type environment. And then we do have about 2,500 square feet of space that we've leased out to a company called Just Air. They were in the news recently, coming from San Francisco here to as a startup company, and we're excited to have them here. They've just kind of rolled right into our group of people, and it just more the merrier, we kind of say around here. So everybody's having fun. So we have several businesses here operating, some that are under our Fountainhead umbrella and some that we are just supporting with space. But our capabilities, and again, the way our model works is that we see ourselves as, especially in med device and even more specifically orthopedic medical devices, but we're really getting more into just your standard class 1, class 2 devices. We see ourselves as having the ability to get those things through the system very, very quickly by just bringing it in-house. And so we have, and COVID has kind of helped us to really sharpen this process, and I think it's kind of become our preferred participation vehicle. While before we would probably look at doing some, more just cash investment, passive type investment. We want to be more active now in the face of COVID and what that looks like for everybody's fundraising activities and the ability to go raise capital. And so we look at things like, what are you going to spend the money on? And if they're going to go hire engineers, well, we've got engineers. If you're going to go hire patent attorneys to work out your IP portfolio, well, we've got IP attorneys. If you need a QMS system, well, we've already got one that's proven, in clearing devices. If you want prototyping, we have plastic prototyping machines here, and we have 3 titanium laser powder bed printers out in San Diego at our Watershed facility. So we can do everything really that that's what we do every day, right? Envision every day creates medical devices and puts them in the market to improve patient outcomes. And so for us, it just seems like it just seems natural to help entrepreneurs, especially if they have products or items or ideas that are going to be, eventually have to visit the FDA in some form or format. It just seems easier for us to bring them in, and we do it very, very quickly. And I'm not bragging because I've got nothing to brag about personally. It's the team that works with me that I'm bragging on. But I don't know that anybody does it faster. And I try and share this whenever I can because it's a testament to the way we can incubate and really accelerate a project. But we had one surgeon come to us from Chicago with an idea that would help patients in lower extremities, foot and ankle surgery, heal quicker and walk quicker. Normally he's taking about 6 weeks to walk a patient. And this new idea would take it to down about 2 weeks to walk a patient. Well, we signed the NDA to help him with his project on December 10th of 2019. And the 510K for a Class 2 implantable medical device went into the FDA, was submitted to the FDA on September 10th of this year. And based on all the indications back from the FDA, it will clear before December 10th of 2020. So from the time we sign the NDA till the time he'll receive FDA clearance on his product is less than 365 days. So we expect that by January, February, that he'll be implanting his device for his patients. And just kind of wrapping up to the other things we do, and the reason why we like bringing them in-house is not only do we have the engineers, the quality, the patents, all that piece, but we source all over the world every day for our existing technologies and our existing devices and products that we sell throughout our portfolio companies. So again, it's just easy to plug in, not only just getting a device cleared, but getting it sourced for production. And so I think we can do everything from the back of a napkin through a commercialized product line. So it's our goal to kind of bring as many of those companies from San Antonio in as possible and help them get them through the system.
Well, thank you so much, Brian, for sharing all of those details related to your capabilities. I know that your organization is going to be a great asset to a lot of the innovators and engineers and scientists here in San Antonio that are looking for, support as well as facilities to run their projects. And along that line, we have an audience member, Gabby Moderator, who is the CEO of Bluegrass Vascular Technologies, headquartered here in San Antonio. She had the question for you, Brian. Does your facility have the accreditation to make human use product? And then the second question is, do you allow non-portfolio companies to use your facility?
So the short answer on the first one is yes, we do. We do for inhuman use. We do have all the certifications, manufacturing and otherwise, for inhuman use products. And the second answer is also yes, we do. Non-portfolio companies are more than welcome to come use our facilities. Again, this is something that we feel is as a good corporate citizen of San Antonio, we feel like we need to be supportive of all of our local businesses. So anything we can do to help, we love to help. And we certainly would love to entertain anybody that would be willing to come out and take a look and see if we can help them.
Thank you. I certainly enjoyed my tour a couple of weeks ago. I didn't get to meet you personally, but I met some of the other folks there in addition to the Just Air tenant that you have there in your facility. They have a very interesting and innovative face mask that they're working on. So I'd like to move on to Ramon Coronado. So first of all, Ramon, congratulations for Peridor Therapeutics winning the 2020 Most Fundable Companies by the Pepperdine Business School. That was an amazing accomplishment. Can you tell us more, Ramon, about your involvement with Peridor Therapeutics and its relationship to Crown Scientific And then give us an inside peek as well into, what do you have at Crown Scientific and how do you help local bioscience innovators, especially in the therapeutic space?
Perfect. Well, thank you very much. So I would like to say, like, and Brian, for example, you have an impressive journey, right? You have probably you've done the whole trajectory from medical device, from ideation to commercialization. And as you walk through every single step, you're able to leave kind of that path available for others to just walk it faster, better. You're like, I've done this, I fail here, I fail here, I fail there. So why don't you guys come over and I'll help you out get to the next stage easier. And when I grow up, I want to be like Brian and have all the path figured out until commercialization. Right now, we have not gone to the point of manufacturing and commercialization per se. So, but also we have a different flavor. So every path, of course, will have a different characteristics. For us, it's more in the therapeutics, more into drug development and nanoparticle therapeutics, or even tissue implants and something like that. So Crown Scientific is the infrastructure they give that as I'm walking through with Peritor. Peritor is a new drug, it's a new type of a regenerative non-steroidal drug that is good for reducing inflammation and promoting regeneration. So as I'm walking Peritor through all the process to go through the FDA, we are in clinical trials doing human data right now and so on. As we're leaving that path behind, I'm opening for other people to hey, you can hop on and try the initial steps that it took us so long. Now the equipment is very expensive, so we already have it. There's no need to reinvent the wheel on that end. And then people can use that. So Crown Scientific is pretty much, think about it as a little incubator for people that are developing therapeutics and drugs. Right now, we housing 3 companies doing exactly that. So one of them is working on a cancer therapeutic, and they're using these nanoparticles and so on. So they can come over, formulate, have a wet laboratory where they can use cancer cells and see if they can kill them. And then they can do that in different settings where they can prove a concept for manufacturing and so on. Another company, which is Peritor Therapeutics, does the manufacturing components for the trials early on, which has different requirements. And then another company is just using our animal facilities. So we have the capabilities of doing rodents and small animal proof of concept experimentation, so people can just get those into the animals before going to the FDA. So as we move forward in the path on the journey of getting that approved, then hopefully we'll give that opportunity to others and that guidance. Because something that happened to me is when I started, I didn't have a lot of guidance available, or it was not well known in the world of therapeutics. So San Antonio is very, very good in medical devices. But when it comes down to therapeutics, I have a little harder time finding people who can guide me. So we kind of gathered these few company startups, and some of them were a little bit ahead. And like, oh, what lawyer do you use, or your convertible notes and all the legal components. And it's a matter of language at the end of the day. So as a startup, you have to learn many languages, and it's much easier when you have other people around you that can translate for you as you learn and move forward. So Brian, I'm pretty sure everyone is like, well, now today, these 5 minutes, I'm going to talk science. The next 10, I'm going to talk about the medical doctor doing the activity and implanting or injecting. Then the next one, I'm going to be talking legal for corporate structure, but then legal for patents. And there's so many little components that when you have a group of startups walking or with a goal of going through the FDA and bringing therapeutics to the clients, then you can take a lot of benefit out of it. So the other company that we're housing is a tissue company doing nipple regeneration. So they needed to do animal studies before they can get into bigger, better grants and getting investors. So we can do that much faster than academia usually, and much cheaper because our head is minimal. We have a small team. But also each company will benefit, not only their company, but our company too, because each one of us has a different angle of expertise. And we have scientists in-house that can help with science, but also we have CEOs from other companies that we can talk about making the deals, introducing to VC, introducing to angel investors, of course, pitch decks and so on, and also thinking your idea through, because there's a lot of things that are uncertain, and having that community helps a lot. So Crown offers the infrastructure, is the hardware, and that is just like a factory for therapeutics, let me put it that way. And then different companies come in and do their research in that infrastructure, and Peritor is one of them. So Peritor came from after 5 years of research that I did on regenerative medicine, cell therapeutics, and we made a tremendous discovery, and we were able to just move over and go from one point to the other one. So that's pretty much how we work it out.
Thank you, Ramon. So I'd like to move next to John Fritz. So John, I've been reading in the news about the new venture mentoring service that UT Health has launched in conjunction with UTSA. I'd love to learn more about that. And also, John, I was hoping you could tell us a little bit about how TechNovum helps the innovators and scientists within UT Health, maybe some examples of projects you're working on, and really how does UT Health interact with the broader community, the bioscience community here in San Antonio?
Yes, thank you. So I'll start with TechNovum, and because VMS is kind of a next step, from TechNovum. So we had our first cohort last year with eight teams. We had 2 med devices, 2 therapeutics, diagnostics, and then some digital health that were in that cohort. And they're all inventors that have indicated that they had an interest in forming startup companies and trying to get their innovation out to patients, and being involved in that, directly. So in that program, it's meant to be, as we call it, founders helping founders. So it's very interactive. In the sessions that we would have, 7 of the 8 of our participants were clinicians, active clinicians. 1 was a scientist. So we basically did evening sessions when they weren't seeing patients and so forth. And occasionally there would be something that would pop up and they couldn't necessarily make it. But those teams were made up. They had what we call a commercialization assistant working with them, which was a graduate student who was going through the whole process all through the entire program with that team and getting a chance to learn the process and how it works. And then some of the teams actually had entrepreneurs from the community working with them. And that's one of our interactions, is the people who actually lead our companies are not necessarily the people that are our clinicians and our scientists. They're going to stay with their day job, but they'll be involved with the company, but they need a management team. So that's one part of it. And then we also had a dozen mentors from the community. This is I know Gabby's on the line, this is a very giving community here. And our mentors had, volunteered that had experience to also help these teams. So it was kind of mixed in that way with TechNovum. And so the idea is that those companies would then spin out and get involved, whether they need help with a med device and they go to Brian, or it's a therapeutic and they go to Ramon, or they go to David's program, which is coming up next, which is where they would go to then grow their business after they figured out whether or not they really had a business, because ours is so early. Part of it is just figuring out if you really have something to move forward with. And so, so we're intertwined in the community, because without the community, we wouldn't be able to get these innovations out to patients. It does take a village in our case in working that way. And then the VMS for us is kind of that second step. Let's say they go through the Velocity Accelerator and they're more advanced, or they even come out and maybe they're ready to go from ours, possibly to get a management team. Then once they have a team in place and they have a license from the university, the VMS program, which is based on the MIT model that we were trained on, is based on team mentoring. So we have mentors that 2 or 3, sometimes even 4 could be assigned to a team, and they work with them on an ongoing basis, giving them advice. And they're not involved with the companies. It's a kind of a arm length transaction, but they're there to just give advice and help the companies grow. So, I would say without the connectivity in the community that we welcome and we have, and working together, we wouldn't really be able to get as many things out. So that's kind of how our model works. It is currently designed, TechNovum, for UT Health faculty and staff. Down the road, who knows, and we may be able to open it up to more companies, et cetera, that could be involved. But for now, it is set up that way.
Thank you, John. And we actually had an audience member question from Luke Perkins over at 3M. Hi, Luke. Worked on a project together in the past. So Luke was asking, and this could relate to the mentoring program. Are there opportunities for technical or business experts to share time and skills to support the San Antonio startup community?
So I think the question is about, are we looking for mentors to get involved? Yes, absolutely. The startup companies that are coming into VMS have different needs at different times, right? Sometimes the very early part is they're just trying to understand how to raise money. Other times they're trying to go figure out the FDA and other things of that nature. So we're actually actively looking to expand the mentor network. And if anyone who's interested, I'd love to have them, contact me, and I'll get them the full information on the VMS program. And also TechNovum, that we use mentors in both of those programs. And then also we have guest speakers that come in and also help with our series as well.
Thank you, John. And perhaps after this session, we can share your contact information with a few of the folks that were interested in supporting your program. All right, so I'd like to move on to David Fonseca. So first of all, congratulations for launching your BioGlobal Accelerator program. I saw that went live in early September and is now open for applications. Can you tell us a little bit more, David, about how is the BioGlobal Accelerator structured, and really what types of companies are you looking for to apply to it, and what resources and capabilities do you offer to the companies going through this program?
Thank you, Monica. The Bio Accelerator has the value proposition on that particular program is very simple. First, we're looking at companies that are in the biotechnology, medical devices, and health IT to take advantage of a curriculum that includes 23 sessions for two facilitators in the community, and Gabby and Corey that is on video, you guys are going to be there adding value. And then we layer in an entrepreneur residence component, which we are going to have for entrepreneur residents well known. And they are going to be certified in a methodology out of Denmark that has come to the United States. They're already in 50 plus countries called Roadkill to make sure that we can do an assessment of the companies. And once we do that, we can create a milestone-driven program, 60 to 90 days, and then we can layer in the mentors. The mentors are going to be 10 top mentors, as well, very well known in the community, in the biospace. And along the way, we seek to do some networking opportunities to put the companies in front of the right people. So the BioGlobal Accelerator, we believe, is something of value to the company, because if you look into the industry, for each entrepreneur resident, we probably could handle 12 to 14 companies. We're looking at a ratio of 2 to 1 here. And these entrepreneur residents are going to get paid. If you see the amount, the level of the mentors, we want to make sure that those mentors are taken care of in terms of, giving them the visibility that they deserve, but also giving them enough, not bombarding them with 5 companies, but rather 1 or 2, so they can really spend quality time and impact on the activities that they perform with the company. Of course, Monica, I'll keep it super short because I will be interested in hearing more questions about the audience, but it's just one little piece of the puzzle, right? We do have an innovation district. We do have funding. As you guys might have heard, we integrated Alamo Angels in our family of business at PRTF. We're looking at launching a new fund, and of course, we're looking at launching other platforms like Bioconnect Texas, that is a database that has 300 plus bioassets in our community, and then and in the future, hopefully, we'll be able to announce something that has transpired with the federal government that is big news for San Antonio. So I think the Bioaccelerator will make me very proud, and I wish anybody that has a startup to really consider applying. It's just one piece of the bigger puzzle of how can we add value to entrepreneurs and the community of San Antonio. As John said, this could not be possible without the help of the community. We're not leading anything. We're just facilitators and collaborators that are blessed to have you guys in the community and invited to entrepreneurs.
Thank you, David. And Luke Perkins actually had a second question. And I would like you to answer this, David, but maybe Brian, you can chime in as well, or Ramon or John, if it applies to your organizations or your opportunities. So really, when it comes to funding, are there opportunities for investing money in the startup companies that are your clients or other projects going on in San Antonio?
Yeah, most definitely. The way we handle it, at least here at Velocity, is, to be part of the Alamo Index, we're abiding by the Security Exchange Commission rules, which are defined. You have to be an accredited investor. And what that means is you have $1 million outside your homestead, or a salary of $200,000, or joint with your spouse, $250,000. If you comply with these requirements or with these thresholds, you can join Alamo Index, and we're hosting meetings on a monthly basis. We hosted one. We got 3 good deals today. On average, we're receiving 15 to 20 different deals, and we really take pride on the selection process of these deals. We have a screening committee that does recommendations to a selection committee. Once they get selected, we spend between 4 and 5 hours preparing them to present in front of the investors. The beauty of this is that you can do your own investments, look at your individual, liking, but also we have a syndicate vehicle where, investors are putting between $25,000 and $50,000. And if they want, they can let the investment committee make the decisions, or they can join the committee. And we're looking at raising a second fund in the next 12 months. If you're looking more like a later Series B or Series C, we have some family offices interested at that level. But recently with the pandemic, we haven't seen that much activity, being quite honest. So I hope that answers your question.
Great, and along that line, we had another question from Gabby Niederar, and I'd like to hear from Brian, Ramon, or John if you have some insight into this topic. So Gabby says funding is key to any medical startup, and San Antonio has fewer investment groups than any other cities within Texas. What can we as a community do to improve that?
Yeah, so I think it's a great question, and it's a I don't know if it's an 800-pound. It might be the elephant in the room. I mean, it really has. There's got to be number one. There's got to be the money's got to be here, right? So you've got to have other businesses that are generating revenue that want to create investment funds, and so. I think San Antonio has got some of that, but compared to Austin, some of the other places, Houston and Dallas, it doesn't. I mean, Houston, Dallas, there's a lot of old oil money out there that has created a lot of wealthy people and created a lot of family offices that are the impetus for starting in some of these, that fund some of these early venture capital groups, right? And so. San Antonio's got some of that. It's getting better. I think the advent of some of the oil, energy business here, and Rackspace, amongst others, I think are doing have certainly helped support all that. But I think that's probably it's a little bit behind where Dallas, Houston, and Austin are in terms of just the breadth of wealth that's available instead of the concentration of wealth. In San Antonio, but I think how we combat that is, or how we mitigate that is, we help strengthen startups before they go out, so that the startups have a greater chance of success. And so if we can get together as a community and really get these startups in a place where I used the term earlier, de-risking them. If we can de-risk them and make them a little bit stronger, then we have a better success rate. So maybe, and then that's going to bring money from out of town, because money will come wherever the deals are. And if we have a track record of success, then I really think the money will come. And I just one other thing I'd add to it is, the things that San Antonio has, I think, are unique to Austin, Dallas, and Houston, and would make it a better place to be, is the relationship between the academic community here, the medical community here, and the military community here. Those three can generate, I think, really can come together and generate a lot of deal flow. They can strengthen the deals. There's some great sources of non-dilutive funding here through the military and the strength of the military medical complex here. And those are things that we should be marketing out abroad that are clearly different and unique from the Dallas, Houston, and Austin kind of traditional wealth of family offices.
So Monica, I wanted to add just a couple of recent experiences we've had, because we, have the therapeutics and diagnostics and devices and have had to reach out for a long time, right, to find investment. And a lot of it has come from outside of San Antonio. And so we had our TechNovum demo day. I reached out to about 110 venture capital firms around the country, specifically that invest in med devices and therapeutics, et cetera, and tried to get them to come to San Antonio for demo day. And we had, I think, 20 ultimately that showed up, but a lot of them were local people. We had a few from outside, including one from Japan. But then when we did our Presidential Technology Entrepreneurial Fund session, which we do every year, where we put up to $50,000 into our most promising technologies, and we invited, and this, because of COVID, it had to be virtual. And so instead of 20, we got 75, and they were from Boston and California and so forth. And several of those investors followed up on the technologies that they heard. So I think, one of the answers that I think we've learned is that the virtual events that can get investors so they don't have to travel is going to be a key for our strategy in the future. And that was actually forced upon us, and it turned out to be something that we're now going to make a regular part of our PTEF program and TechNovum as well.
Thank you, John. And we actually have 1 minute left.
Oh, 1 minute. Okay.
We have 1 minute left, so I would like to direct this last question to Ramon Coronado, because I know, Ramon, that you have been involved as an entrepreneur yourself in a couple of startup companies. So given the three necessary ingredients of funding, technology, and management talent, in your opinion, which of those three are weak or strong in San Antonio? And this is coming from Corey Levinson.
Corey, great questions. I think that's going to depend on the eyes of the beholder in that sense, because I think I can argue that we have great of the three things. It's just like a sporadic. In my experience, I think we have less funding risk takers. Like San Antonio seems to be like, even though there's some money, they're not used to taking the risk like Houston or Austin or Dallas. So I think in that we're lacking that like wildcatter mentality of being like, you know what, I'm gonna bet into companies here and then widespread. So a lot of people are waiting to have you already in a mid stage to give you money when it's already kind of proven to a certain degree. So I think we're lacking on that one. Technology, I think we're great. I think we have a lot of input of technology and people that are great minds, and that thing. I think we're pretty strong on that end. And in management talent, that really depends on the area of expertise. That's a hit and miss, in my opinion, just because you have people that are excellent on that area of expertise. But in my case, for biologics and therapeutics, there's not too many. So that is a little bit of both. Depending on the field that you're in, you can find the greatest or nothing. There's not a lot of in-betweens, in my opinion, in that end. And for the funding, even though there's money, not a lot of people in San Antonio is a risk taker. With globalization, like you're talking about, there's more VCs and firms are willing to give you money from far away. But then for us, it has been easier to be recognized or giving funding from outside of San Antonio. Now, I see that also as an opportunity to be like, hey, we'll stay around. And I'm following Gabby's steps in that sense. Is like, hey, she's been proving that it can be done here and giving hope and optimism to other investors. So perhaps we can create that niche in San Antonio where people are more familiar with taking that risk, putting some money into startups or small companies and see them grow and get more familiar with that.
Thank you, Ramon. That was an excellent answer. Well, I just wanted to thank everybody for attending. Thank you to all the panelists for devoting your time. And it looks like we know most of the attendees. So what I'd like to do after this is share everybody's contact information. And if you had any other questions, you can direct those directly to the panel members. So thank you so much for tuning in, and hope to hopefully see some of you in person soon. And have a great rest of the week and enjoy the rest of the conference.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Pleasure to be part of it.
Thank you.